Welcome to Family Hour here as part of the Iowa vlog. We are here with a rather full cast of characters, even if one of our characters is muted at the moment. We've got Will in the upper left. Good evening, Will.
Hello, Yada. How are you?
I'm doing great. I've had a really fun day of translating Yoel 2 and deducing some of the really humorous comments that Yahweh had to make. I shared with everybody in the beginning of the program. It's fun to actually figure this stuff out and to get it translated and then get to comment on it.
Yeah.
And Kirk, has it warmed up a bit in Carmel, and how you feeling?
Well, I'm feeling all right. It got real hot, and then it got real cold. Then it rained. Welcome to Carmel.
Yeah, welcome to Carmel. Sunny Southern California. Well, you're kind of mid-California, mid to north, so. But it's supposed to be the prettiest place in the state. One of my favorite places anyway. But you get a couple of days of sunshine each year, whether you need it or not.
Vitamin D.
Yeah, of course. The funny thing about Carmel is that the coldest months are actually during the summertime, because that fog is super dense. It's chilling, bone chilling, and it rolls in, and it seldom leaves.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so you have April, May, June, July, August, and September that are almost always foggy. And then you get a little October and November before winter sets in, and where you can have some pretty days. But when it's pretty, man, it doesn't get any better.
No, it's pretty.
Yeah. So, Mike, what's going on, pal?
Not much. Just hanging in there. I know the comment on Carmel, a guy I used to work with in Texas, he used to say the coldest winter he ever had was a summer in San Francisco.
Yeah, that's true. I lived for a good long while where I was trying to escape the X. I had houses everywhere, so I could always be, out in front of where she was, and had an airplane to bebop between them. Always reasons to be at a different house. And I had one in Montecito, California, Santa Barbara area, which is, northern part of Southern California. And man, when it came to be summertime, and you needed sweaters, it was cold. We really didn't get warm temperatures except just a smattering of days. California can be pretty tough. Also down there in the Lone Star State, JB, good late afternoon and evening to you.
Yep. Good afternoon.
Yeah. And it looks like you're out of the hospital again, Dr. Jeff?
I am indeed.
Okay. Good to see you. And Kevin, we'll just have you nod until such time as you can call in. We're going to use the high-tech technology of having Kevin's going to call in on Perry's phone. We're going to put Perry's phone on speaker and then put that in front of Rich's microphone. And that's how all that's going to work, so we can actually hear what Kevin says when it's time to turn to Kevin for his thoughts on our subject this evening. We do have Perry and we have Rich here. Both will be on camera shortly, but and we also have Leah. She will be joining us also momentarily. So I think we'll have 10 voices on this subject matter. Today, earlier, we began a series. I always love the first day in a new series. This one was called Luminaries. It is a presentation of the first prophecy that's in the Torah, and then we're going to continue to pursue everything that God had to say about his greater and lesser luminaries. He's using a metaphor for the sun and the moon to speak of two men that are engaged in the Mow'ed, the 7 annual meetings with Yahweh, and serve as signs and therefore exemplars of what God's looking for in this relationship. As I've said, it doesn't mean that they're perfect. Far from it. In fact, they're both exceedingly flawed individuals who make mistakes, stumble and fall, and that is what makes them exemplars, because they don't stay down. And if they make a mistake, they're delighted to correct it and move on, having learned from the experience. So, but they these two fellas seemed to tickle Yahweh's fancy. He liked their personalities and attitudes and attributes. But more than anything else, they just seemed to have been responsive and reliable. When he puts them in, as I say, they may not be the prettiest show on earth, but they always get it done. They manage to finish the job, and that has been particularly pleasing to God. So we're going to begin with this prophecy. I've shared earlier that I'm writing the 4th and 5th volumes of Coming Home simultaneously. I think I'm up to about 1,500 pages between the two of them, constantly trying to refine how we're going to go about making this presentation. These may be the last two books we get to write at this phase of our journey. And I wanted to do God right in the sense that if he starts with a prophecy, why don't we start with that one and then see it all the way through, and it's all of its permeations through the entire process. So that's what we are doing, and for that I want to go directly now to what God said in the first chapter of Bereshith, Genesis. So this is the opening volume of the Torah, and prior to what he is going to reveal, God introduced himself as our creator. That's a pretty important position. He's saying, I created the universe and everything that's in it. So, if you want to know who's in charge around here and who made this all possible for you, I'm it. Next thing he said is that he was able to speak the universe into existence, which means that he has to be a dimension beyond the universe that he created. It's the only way that words would be causal in that kind of way. So we know the universe is at least 4 dimensions, but then we have what we call dark matter and dark energy, which are one's attractive and one's repulsive. One would be equivalent to choice. The other might be equated to relationships that exceed our understanding, and something that is beyond our capacity to understand, even to be able to have any clue as to what it's comprised of, like, for example, a soul, or these the 5th and 6th dimensions. It's usually always a dimension beyond our own, which precludes our understanding of something. So I've equated dark matter and dark energy, these strange names that we have for that which we don't understand, that comprise 95% of the universe, as dimension 6, 5, and 6, time dimension 4, Yahweh's in dimension 7. And that's important because the perspective that we have on all that follows and what is being offered to us, and why God in that first opening salvo equated himself to light. The first thing he created, and he essentially says that he is equivalent to light. And light is the regulatory force of the universe. It is not only the speed limit of the universe, it defines distances, it defines time itself. It isn't until light coalesces into matter that time actually flows, and prior to that time simply exists. And so it is the fundamental basis of our universe is light. He uses a number of terms then to describe the expansive nature of our universe, something that we learned about 60 or 70 years ago, that the universe is expanding. He spoke of it then. He actually spoke of a Big Bang, which science has stolen from him and didn't give him credit, but it's in his testimony. And he tells us in that second day, he uses the Hebrew term for relativity about 5 times in one presentation, even talking about how the nursery for stars would be enormous galactic deposits of water. And we have now found that there is just enormous amounts of water out there, and that in the nebula that serve as incubators for stars, they're filled with water. And so all of that is scientifically accurate. And then with the understanding of relativity, he shared something with us that I think is really quite profound, which is that when he speaks of 6 24-hour days and the creative process, that's from his perspective at creation. And it wasn't until about 40 years ago that we were actually able to measure the amount of energy that was released in the creative event so that we would know how much time was stretched in that environment. Because time, as we know, does not flow at the same pace for all observers in all locations. It's relative to the place of observation, and it slows down appreciably in the presence of great speed, energy, or mass. And so we now can actually do the calculation and take the 14 billion years that we're assuming the universe is old. I think it's closer to 15 that we're going to find out now that we have the James Webb telescope and are finding galaxies that are way too old for a 13.8 billion year old universe. And the 13.8 is just a calculation based upon our estimated temperature of quark confinement, which we can't actually replicate anyway. So this notion that it's exactly 13.8 is silliness. And it's now appearing that somewhere closer to 15 billion years is the right number. But if you take that number and you divide it by 10 to the 12th power, which is what we have learned about the stretching of time based upon the microwave background radiation, which the Wilkinson probe has ascertained, then you divide this between 14 and 15 billion years by 10 to the 12th. You know what the result is?
6 billion.
Yeah, 6 24-hour days. That is exactly accurate. So all these people that are having the conniption fits, particularly the religious, saying that the universe is 6,000 years old, and that's the way it's presented in Judaism. Maimonides ran his calendar from what he thought was creation as opposed to expulsion from Eden. So Judaism is wrong, Islam is wrong, Christianity is wrong, and God's right. He just said it that telling us the story beginning 10 billion years before Earth time even existed, because the Earth wouldn't exist until 10 billion years into the process. He's telling the story from the point of creation, and from that point, we can measure the dilation of time, and it's 14.5 billion years is 6 24-hour days. So that gets your attention. Then on the third day, he told us that he was the author of life, and that life began with single cell life in the oceans, and that it proliferated onto land from the seas as plant life, and that life began as plant life before there were animals, because of course there had to be two things had to happen. One is there had to be food for the animals to consume, and second of all, there had to be a way to absorb the carbon dioxide that was in the atmosphere that would cause this tremendous greenhouse effect from all of the volcanic eruptions that were taking place around the world at this time. And the plant life would consume the carbon dioxide and transform it into oxygen, and we got a translucent and ideal atmosphere that was conducive to animals as a result on the third day of having plant life. But on the fourth day, God didn't mention anything was created.
It's prophetic.
He just said the process played out over a time, and instead of talking about what he created on the fourth day, because he mentioned nothing that he created then, he actually says, I'm going to talk to you about a prophecy. And the prophecy happened to be presented in the terms of the greater and lesser luminaries, and that these luminaries would serve as signs, as exemplars of the Mow'ed, which are the 7 annual meetings for us to be in God's presence. We just finished the celebration of the week-long Chag Matzah just yesterday. So this is a prophecy about how he's going to fulfill these things and how we should benefit from them, and really how we should, I think, perceive the entire story that he's going to tell over 6,000 years of our time now, how we should perceive it. I think these are this is the frame, if you will, of the portrait that he is presented in this prophecy about these two luminaries. So I'm going to share it again, and we're going to spend much of this program just querying our panel here of 9 guests, and we're going to see what you all think. I had a chance to share my thoughts, and I'll do them again maybe at the end of this program on what this all means for us, because it's profound what he has to say and how he sets up everything that follows with this prophecy presented on the 4th day of creation. And it reads, God said, with the narrative playing out over time, there will be, it has been decided upon, and there will exist throughout time by choice, menorah, luminaries, to ponder the implications of light. It's kissing cousin to menorah. It's menorah. Brilliant and shining providers of illumination, of enlightenment. It's a compound of ma, to contemplate the implications of, or, the Hebrew word for light. In the expanse, but also to expand the presence of the spiritual realm of the heavens. So these luminaries, their contribution is to make heaven more expansive. And we'll talk about how they go about doing that. How do they increase the heavenly experience? To understand the separation between, this is Badal Bien. Badal means to recognize that some things are set apart from others, some things are included, while others are excluded. And Bien is one of the favorite Hebrew words that we have encountered and shared. It means to make the connections necessary to understand, so that you go from knowledge to comprehension. And in this case, you would put these two fellows as the greater and lesser luminary together and deduce what they mean. Is this program will be an exercise in Bien.
Cool.
So to understand the separation between the time of light as it is distinct from the darkness of the night. So I don't think he's actually talking about the 12 hours of daytime or the 12 hours of nighttime, but instead what light and darkness represent in terms of the epochs of time. And when we were in a very bright and enlightened place as humans, and when we were in darkness and despair as humanity. God says they will exist. And this is God's voice. No man is projecting what they think should have been said here about these fellows. God is saying they will exist. A menorah, by the way, is masculine, and it's presented in the masculine singular through here and in the plural with a very interesting twist, which is that, as we have said so many times, if you take a masculine noun like Adam and you change it to Adamah, you take par, the bull, and you make it para, you've expanded the fullness of the capacity and understanding and the appreciation of what that noun represents. Etz versus etzah. Etz is tree. Etzah is this being able to branch out and frame the entire picture from beginning to end. And he's speaking of the tree of knowledge. So etzah would be the comprehensive portrait of that knowledge. And Adamah would be the complete appreciation for all Adam represents. And so he took masculine noun here and he made it plural by adding a feminine plural to it. It's a very interesting approach in this regard. And I think it's likely also because these two individuals could not do anything that they have done and will do without being imbued by the set apart spirit, the Ruach, which is feminine. And God is not doing this through physical bodies. He's doing this through their nephesh souls, and nephesh soul is a feminine term, even if it's in a man. So he says, they will exist as wonderful symbols, as brilliant examples, and obvious signs, as illustrious exemplars of consent, offering miraculous proof. La'oth. I think this is the second most important word of this whole narrative. They are la'oth, wonderful symbols, brilliant examples, and obvious signs as illustrious exemplars of consent. They're examples of what happens if you are willing to agree with what Yahweh wants done. That's essentially what he's saying. Offering miraculous proof. They are the proof card in this whole tale of God's story. They are the ones who bring the evidence. They're a means to convey information on a banner to guarantee the dependability of the assertion, announcements and illustrations to be remembered, and as evidence which makes the message more clearly known. The first letter in oath is the one letter that depicts both of these men using the symbol that God uses for them throughout his story. It's the Aleph, which is the depiction both of a ram's head and a bull's head that is yoked, that is engaged, pulling a load, bearing a load. And for the Mow'ed, this is probably the most important word in the whole process. The Mow'ed are the appointed meeting times for the restoring witnesses to the eternal testimony. These are the 7 annual opportunities to meet with God that are fulfilled by the restoring witnesses: Pesach, Matzah, Bekurim, Shabbat, Teruah, Kippurim, and Sukkah. It is the only way to God. And he's telling us that these are exemplars and signs and committed participants in the Mow'ed. So he's sure not talking about the sun and the moon here. He's using the sun and the moon as, and doesn't even mention sun and moon, but he's using the greater and lesser luminaries as symbols to describe the two people that are going to fulfill the Mow'ed over the next 6,000 years. As well as for days and for years as a means to reckon time, perhaps as a means to even put together the timeline so we know when things happened along the way. For example, to be among the first to express that 6 24-hour days from the point of the creator and relative to creation is the equivalent of 14 to 15 billion years of our time looking on using an earth clock. They're the same. That was Bereshith, Genesis 1:14. Therefore, they exist for enlightenment as luminaries, as Meoreth, to support the expansion of the spiritual realm. We have a purpose. Their task is to expand the spiritual realm. And obviously, they're not going to do it by making as 3-dimensional constructs. Their souls are not. Their souls would be 7-dimensional, but they're physical bodies. They're not going to expand heaven, but they can do something that makes heaven more expansive. They can absolutely support the expansion of the spiritual realm by the quality of the individuals they deliver to it. To be an or. to be a light. And, or is, again, the Aleph, which is the ram's head, and the bull's head, with the Wah, which means to increase and add to, and the Rosh, which is a observant individual, showing ears, mouth, and eyes, who is observant, thoughtful, a good listener, and only responds after all of that, is an or, light, to provide illumination and enlightenment upon the earth and on behalf of the land. And therefore, it will continue to exist like this depiction that God is sharing with you in this prophecy, based upon what preceded it. God told you what happened in the 3 days preceding this, and he says it's going to continue this way because of the role of what these fellows are going to accomplish. So God acted and engaged, this is God's doing, to appoint for this particular task. He did what had to be done to make, with ongoing implications over time, what pertains to these two menorah, sources of illumination and enlightenment, who are Gedolim. They're substantial, empowering, important, and influential from God's point of view. A bit intense, often loud, certainly distinguished. They're Gadol, they promote growth while amplifying the means to empowerment. With Ha Gadol, the greater, more distinguished, and older of the Mayor, of the luminary, Mimshala, prominent, powerful, having dominion and authority, the one governing as sovereign of the illuminated time. Oh, isn't when Dowd comes back, even his position of honor is as brilliant as the sun? That would be an illuminated time, wouldn't it? When we are living apart from religion and politics and God's presence, that would be an illuminated time. He's sovereign of that. And with Hakatan, the lesser, younger, and more recent Ha-Mayor, luminary, Mishshala too, prominent, powerful, having dominion and authority, the one authorized to lead through illustrative insights, guiding by drawing pictures with words, and becoming an effective communicator to advance understanding. It is from Mashal to lead by conveying ethical maxims and by writing proverbs. All for this time of darkness, when the light is not well known. Along with the heavenly powers, Bereshith, Genesis 1:16. The Almighty, he offered them as a gift. They're God's gift to man, placing them in this position for the ongoing purpose. This is, again, the third time God has said he is the actor. He is the cause of this effect. He is the one who has made these two luminaries functional and available. He is the power behind them. He is literally the light that they reflect. He bestowed, appointed, and assigned them for this opportunity and task on an ongoing basis, quite literally, in the vast expanse as an extensive and solid evidence of the spiritual realm, to provide light and enlightenment upon the land and the earth. Genesis 1:17. And then the last comment, it's 5 of them right here in the midst of the creation account. Govern, showing leadership by offering proverbial, illustrative, and memorable word pictures, which is a line that we use so often: wield words wisely. Be in charge by leading, by quoting that which is intelligently communicated, and by making informative connections during the light of day and through the darkness of night, providing a contrast to set apart and as separate and distinct, and to expel as well as exclude through understanding and discernment by making intelligent connections leading to comprehending the very essence of light, in addition to wisely discerning insights during the obscuring darkness. God saw. Understatement of the last 6,000 years. God saw that indeed it was good. This was beneficial. He was pleased with his plan. He thought it was productive. Might be a bit of an understatement, but nonetheless, that's how he concluded his assessment of the two fellas. Okay, don't get full of yourself, fellas. I think this is pretty good. It's all right. You got a chance to be productive. Let's not get carried away. Bereshit in the beginning, Genesis 1:18. So you're up there at the top, Will. Who's going to follow God's assessment and say, "Yeah, this is my view of what the big guy just happened to drop on our front porch."
I have a number of thoughts here. The first thing is, I think you said, younger, the basis of that was Catan. And
Yes.
When I looked at that, it does seem that in your case, it really is more about younger than lesser, right? I mean, let's be honest.
Well, I think since and I think interacting, by the way, and asking questions is a fair approach to this. If I were in your position, I would do some of that too. I like Q&A, and it goes both ways. I actually think that both are important. I think that God's primary means, since he said both are great. So if you're going to be the lesser of something that is great, that's still good, right? So that's not actually a slight, and it's not meant to be a slight.
No,
but it is. I didn't really become fully aware of how it really does mean younger until I was dealing with what I think is the single most important prophecy of our time, which is in Yirmiyah 31. Where he talks about the reaffirmation of the covenant with Yisrael and Yehudim, and how it's different because he's not going to drag Yisrael into it kicking and screaming. He's going to do it with a strong hand. By the way, that means that the person that he is deploying this next time has to be pretty firm too. But he's not going to bring them
You mean like a
kicking,
bull?
kicking and screaming. He's not going to do that this next time. And then he said he's going to write his Torah instructions inside of us, doing away with the New Testament, doing away with the Zohar and the Talmud and the Quran. He had no affinity for them. He hated them.
And everything else.
Yeah, he's hated them all along. And so we're going right to the Torah, which he never did away with. And he's writing that inside of our seat of judgment so we can exercise good decisions. Then he goes right into the fact that this is all going to be possible because the younger of the two, he speaks of the sun and the moon, and he says the younger of the two is going to serve as a witness on behalf of the older of the two. And so in Yirmiyah 31, it's clear that Gadol is older and Catan is younger of the two. Now, so
it's definitely
that is the direct. Let me just finish to answer his question. That is the direct answer to your question. That is the emphasis. But don't ever lose sight of the fact that Dowd is God's firstborn son. Dowd is returning as king. Dowd is the one. He is the Messiah. He is our Savior. He is the
all that in a bag of chips.
The lead shepherd, and that for all of this time, in 8 lives, I only have one job. And my job description is really simple.
Support him.
Support Dowd. Do everything you can to support Dowd, both as a person and an individual, and also to promote him so that
As a
he
public
becomes,
figure.
well known again, and he's
Yeah.
credited with what he's achieved. I'm Dowd's promoter and supporter.
Right.
That's my only job, really. And I've drugged Leia through the last 5,400 years doing the same job. And, we serve as parents sometimes, as actual parents, sometimes surrogate parents. But yeah, that's
The
If
two
I
of you
may.
are
that is
all
the job.
about
So
growth.
you are less important than the most important character in the story. So I gave you a very long answer, Will, but that's my long
It was
answer.
complete. It was complete. I do appreciate that, and I'm better for the definition. Now, when I look at that word, Mow'ed, contemplate the implications of light. Well, let's think about who is the who. Well, we know that we're talking about the greater and lesser, or younger and older luminary. So that's Yada and Dowd. And it's also about us. You talk about putting us into the story. And at the end of the day, and what we're talking about here is light. It's all about light and growth going forward. And if you were to ask God, why are we here? Why is Yada here? Why are the men on the panel and Amma? It's to grow. And so and then when you think about and put it with the Mow'ed, well, the fourth day, that's Shabbat. And so you're going to be enriched, enlightened, and empowered. And the enlightenment is, again, that's just another term for growing. So it just seems that when we go into eternity, we talked a couple shows ago about the pace or the cadence of revelation. And it just seems to me that this, what we're experiencing, maybe over the last few months, is going to be very similar to that. God just continuously pours this out, and then we just are the beneficiaries, and we grow. God grows by watching us grow. And I found it really very profound, especially when you consider the fact that Amar and Haya are both in the Kal stem.
Literal, genuine.
Literal, genuine, and really ongoing. And so this is really the name of the game. So Yahweh told us what he did the first 3 days. But when we got to the fourth day, he said, now this is what we're about. This is who we are. Abraham didn't
The ongoing is from the imperfect conjugation is from they were also written in the imperfect conjugation, which means that it is ongoing. Without ceasing. If I could just chime in on one point, you mentioned from your point of view, light is about growth. Are you familiar with Einstein's equation, where he tried to explain that energy and light is the principal form of energy that we recognize the most. It's the fundamental form of energy, really, in the universe.
Another form
that light energy is actually equivalent to matter if you multiply matter by the square of the speed of light. In other words,
equals
light is a great deal more than matter. So while light and matter are comprised of the same thing, they're comprised of enormously different amounts of the same thing. You have to take physical bodies, matter, and multiply them by the speed of light squared, the fastest thing in the universe, the very governing equation of the universe, to equal the amount of light energy. And so if you want to talk about exponential growth, like the speed of light times the speed of light multiplied by the matter, is what we become when our souls are enveloped in light energy as opposed to 3D physical bodies.
And that's really the only way that we can move forward. That's the point of making us light. The point was lost on Abraham. He didn't get it, but he didn't have you necessarily leading the way. But to me, that is just really exciting. I mean, Yahweh loves to be in the middle of it all. As Shabbat, it's in the middle of the menorah. Yahweh's in the middle of it all, and just what we have to look forward to is growth. And if you when I think about this last year, I've grown tremendously, and I'll bet you if you took a poll of the Covenant family, they've all grown. And this is what we're doing. This is what we're about.
It's been our most extraordinary year by a huge factor. I can speak for myself. I've grown more in the last 12 months than I did in the 24 years prior to this.
Yeah, and you're not even late.
If I may, boys.
Yeah.
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 Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom. Mom.
Yes.
Um,
Amma.
when you speak of Katan as younger, it also means smaller, diminished, lesser.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't necessarily mean in stature. Okay? It doesn't necessarily mean that.
No, I'm going to be
Because-
taller. I'm going to be taller than my son.
As
I might even be heftier than my son. Right now, I would say yes that I'm heftier than my son. And my son is a ram, and I'm presented as a bull, even symbolically.
Mhm.
And so it doesn't mean in stature.
But if I may,
Mm-hmm.
for many years before their GPS, before there was all this technology,
Mm-hmm.
men navigated by the moon and the stars.
Mm-hmm.
They planted seasons by the
Mhm.
moon and the stars.
Mm-hmm.
And the light isn't growing, was during the day, the growth.
Mm-hmm.
And we grow for what Dowd has left us, his songs, his life, the lessons. You can't have one without the other. It just doesn't exist. And even though Yahweh says, I want you to think of the separation between the two, what is he talking about? He says so in the prior subject matter, time. That there would be some time between this time and that one.
Yeah, he started with the Dowd. Dowd was Adam.
Mhm.
And once you understand the greater and lesser luminary, the older and younger luminary, you realize that Dowd became Yahweh's firstborn son because he was the one that Yahweh conceived as Adam.
That's right.
And the younger of the two, and I've always just giggled it because every time I have a conversation with God, he always calls me young man. And I just thought, why did you come up with that term, man? I'm not a young man. Well, you are to me. And oh, by the way, you are in the story. So I'm sticking with my story. You're a young man. And so
Because it fits the story.
You know, Adam was the first man created before year zero. Actually, I think put in the garden 6 years before year zero. And I followed his Chinook as the sixth generation from Adam, 600 years later than Adam. And I just think that's it's valuable insight in terms of who these fellows may be, because he'll tell us a lot about.
I never understood the story of Hanuk until now.
Yeah, Chinook.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chinook is Chinook became these two things. The only way that Chinook could have come to know Yahweh to the point that Yahweh took him to be with him because he walked in the ways of Yahweh is that he would have had to engage in conversation with the one person in that community outside of what was the garden. Small community of men and women with an Asama. He would have had to have found a great affinity with Dowd. He would have had to say, you know, man, you're the most interesting man in the world. I like hanging around with you. And he would have had to ask Adam, Dowd, 1,000 questions about what it was like to be in that garden. What was Yahweh like?
Sure.
What did he want? What did he ask? What did he say? What did you guys do? He would have been in my normal personality. He would have been in his normal personality. We'd have had this discussion. We had that discussion for 300 years, and I entered a bromance with Dowd all the way back then. And by supporting
It's not
Dowd,
a bromance, it's fatherly love.
Yeah, following. Yeah,
You just didn't know it.
At that point, he was older than me. But at that point in my life, I developed an appreciation for Dowd's personality and attitude, his intellect, and he had to be exceedingly depressed at that time. You can imagine, living in the garden with the creator of the universe and blowing that, and knowing that you blew it, and so. I didn't guilt him. I said, "Hey, man, look what you did. I mean, You were the one that created this opportunity for all of us. We're all here because, he didn't kill you. We're all alive. We have a conscience. We have an opportunity to earn our way back because of you. So I want to celebrate you, not condemn you. You weren't condemned by God. He just told you it's going to be a rough road coming back. And now that I've listened, now that I've listened to all that God said of you and about you, I think I got it figured out what he was looking for. He just wanted us to listen to him, be observant, be thoughtful, respond appropriately, and then
Gentleman and Amma.
reliable. Yeah. So I think I figured it out. And, we all have our gifts. And you were kidding that Abraham didn't figure it out when he was taken to see the light of the stars and recognize that's what God was offering him through the covenant, is to transform him into light energy, because he didn't have a yada around to explain it to him. That's the one gift that I have. I can look at all this stuff. Everything I look at that God has to say, I understand it, and I can explain it and articulate it. And I'm sure I had those conversations with Adam, who's Dowd. So
it explains a lot.
And you never should have taught a girl to read either.
All right, so we'll have Kirk. You're there with your pen. You look really intellectual with your glasses now. So what do you think, there, pal? We've been around a long time.
Yeah.
You've never thought of me being 5,400 years old before, but
no, but it doesn't. The story doesn't bother me at all. It makes total sense. The thing is, that I had a question though, as I was listening to the show today. Well, something for a minute. Let's say Adam is back in the garden, and he says to Yahweh, he says, "Well, this is a great place. Here's what we'll do. Let's extend that wall out to the ocean on both sides. I know I got to keep all those guys away from us over here. This is a great place. We'll keep it. We'll protect it. In other words, engage him in something. Let's do something instead of sitting around doing nothing."
Exactly.
Like then we could go down to the ocean. We can be like there in Sydney Harbor. They put little things in that so the sharks can't get in and eat you. So it's just a paradise and continues on.
Yeah.
What if you engage Yahweh that way?
Yes.
The story is not, the whole story changes. So my question then becomes: does Yahweh want this much of a challenge?
Right. I mean, the first question I would ask is, how'd you create this garden and this planet and everything else? And when he said, I talked it into existence, I said, so then we ought to be able to talk this garden into a bigger existence, couldn't we? And I understand, there's an ocean out there. I want to see it. I want to walk on the beach. Yeah. I want to fly around like a bird. Let's go do some fun stuff, man. Let's get out of this garden and go do some fun stuff. And maybe we don't get out of the garden. We just expand it. Let's, when you and I talked about how we're going to spend.
You keep building gardens everywhere.
Oh yeah,
everywhere. It'd be nonstop gardens.
Yeah, when Leah and Kirk,
with
you and
plenty of plumeria.
When the three of us talk about what we're going to do, and during that 1,000 years in our time off, because God's not going to work us like slaves. We
have all the energy in the world anyway. So
we'll have all the energy in the world, but we're going to have time off. And during our time off, we talked about terraforming places like this island. I want to blend Cypress Point and Pebble Beach and Old Head and a number of other courses, and have a seaside course that just sits right out here. Right below our house, and you and I come and
there's going to be golf.
We play golf. I want to make the harbor, such that we can have a really nice floating house for our time off, and it can be our broadcast center. So the same exact thing, using words to improve things around us, and I think that's what God was looking for. He wanted Adam to work, to be a contributor. And to listen to what God had to say, think about it, and then respond in a way that he was making a contribution. I think that would have been a contribution. If he had said, okay, those animals are great, but the platypus, I mean, come on.
Well,
let's get the platypus feathers like a parrot, and let's make sure that sucker can fly. then we'll have a little competition on. So I think if he had done that, Yahweh would have said, "Hey, this is really great. I did good with man." So yeah, that's what the point you were driving
Yeah,
at.
pretty much.
agree
I
with
was
you.
wondering how it would have been different and why possibly. Of course, hindsight is always 2020, so that's not fair to do. I mean, gosh knows I may have done worse.
Correct.
So
Yeah. The difference between Dowd and ourselves is that Dowd didn't have any of the perspective that we have. We see what it was like in the garden, and we see everything that has transpired over the last 6,000 years, and so we have so many insights and so many advantages over what he had. So we're in a better position, but that was the whole intent of the whole thing, is that you work at it, you'll be in a better position, and you can figure it out and respond appropriately. So what's your thoughts there after your point is valid that Dowd could have made it more interesting, but he didn't, and but he has subsequently, and he will going forward.
I like y'all's plan. It's really good.
You think it's good too?
I think it's just amazing. It's all works. It's all
So you're
working.
comfortable-
It's gonna-
You're comfortable with the idea of saying, okay, I don't care if there's going to be 100 billion humans, or there's going to be 15 billion with an Asama. I'm going to pick two guys, and I'm going to keep my program going forward in kind of in the lane that I want it to go forward in, so that the 7 Mo'edim are fulfilled on the right schedule, in the right way, and that people know ultimately what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it. And so I'm gonna pick a couple of souls that I can rely on, and not have to put myself ever in a position where I'm risking it all on a relationship with someone I have never worked with in the past and have no idea whether or not they're going to come through.
Too much at stake.
Yeah, I think it's in a way it's like stacking the deck and saying, yeah, when I need something to really happen the way I want it to happen, I've got two guys I can deploy, and if I deploy them together, that's when it really works. And I'm not a loner, and so evidently I made a deal with that. Okay, I'll do this, but my woman comes with me. We're going to do it together. And God said, of course you're going to do it together. You're going to serve as a mother and father figures, and you're going to serve as exemplars for what the covenant's all about. So yeah, of course. I like her too. She's smart. She's
She
your
can
girl.
read.
She's your girl. And every time that something happens, yeah, she'll be right there, and you guys will do it together, and it'll be a lot more fun. And that's been the plan ever since.
Before I shut up, and I should, so everybody can talk, I found y'all last night in a word.
Oh, you did?
And you and Leah, yeah. And so
Okay.
this may be a stretch to y'all, but I was looking up Torah, like in Leviticus and everything. Then I Googled it, then I was going through all the words like I normally do in the letters and so forth. Then I found this verb, Torah, but it was spelled different. It had H and a H. I said, well, what is that? So I just analyzed them, and you may not agree with this analyze. It's just 3 words. The cloth, which is, I was calling it moonlight, just for fun last night. Then there's a Rosh, that was you, observant man. But he's kind of smitten with this hay over here at the end. So, so the out call, it looks just like y'all in the picture.
Yeah.
Somebody wants to look it up. It's like it's 7124.
Yeah, I would agree that God paints his portraits using the letters that comprise words, even in his own name. His name paints a picture. All of the terms that he uses are all designed with letters that tell a story. And so, The thing that the one time I got frustrated. Well, I got frustrated with God twice. One just kind of, all right, we're going to have 10 minutes of no more of this, and one time where I said, okay, God, this is really unnecessary. It's just too it's too aggressive. The personal attacks that were being made on against me by that mother goddess cultlet. I just said, come on, this is just so demeaning. Come on, they're nothing but navel lint, but they're just persistent. They're like a damn mosquito. And then I realized that he can't make them go away because he's written like 20 prophecies about them. and how they pertain to us. So he made it really clear that I know they're a pain in the tush, but I knew they would be, and I've written a bunch of prophecies about how we're going to deal with them and why it has to be done this way. And so just bear with it because of the prophecies I've written. When you do it, you'll see that I've got your back and that it's all resolved favorably. But I want you to have an appreciation that they serve a function. Hasatan serves a function. And that is that God's not trying to attract people into his covenant family. He's far more interested in keeping people out of his covenant family than he is encouraging them to be part of his covenant family. Because he cannot take the risk of empowering people to the seventh dimension that don't belong. And so he wants to make certain that it's hard, that each individual has to prove their worth to be part of the covenant family. That's why we're emphasizing growth and learning within the family now, as opposed to trying to recruit other participants. We'll have time for that again, but that is not this time. And I think it's very significant. The other time that I got a bit miffed at God is over the issue you're raising, which is that every time we find something like this that is another reference to the roles that we're playing and the importance of those roles, you get another target on your head. And the more you're identified in this way publicly, the harder it is to survive the attacks that you receive. So Leah came in, I think it was with the 31st Mashal, which, said, we've got now, you really need to know that the entire story going forward is inclusive of what we're doing together from beginning to end is what this story makes us realize. And what I just said is, okay, I'm full up. I've had my quotient of titles and responsibilities. I was happy being anonymous, and I went along with the first and the second and the third, the Chota, the Nakri, and Bashar, and God, we just have to. You need to tone it down a bit. I mean, come on, enough is enough. It's probably too much, and God said, who's driving this damn show? Who's running the show? Me or you?
The big bang.
And he made it real clear. He says, I'm infinite because I keep growing. You want to keep pace, you need to keep growing. And the moment you get complacent because you've absorbed that last one that I've dealt to you, then you're not growing anymore, are you? So my job is to decide when you're ready for the next level, and then we'll level up. And then you'll run a little bit there until you get comfortable, and then we'll level up again. That's the way it goes. So you don't, I became really clear with that arguing with him on something like that is a waste of time and really counterproductive. Once he makes his point, you say, okay, that's a very good point. I can see why we do it that way. You are a whole lot smarter than me. We'll go that way. And it all works out. Well, as we go down the channel there, guess who's next? Mr. Fact Checker. Mike, this is a tough one to check the facts on, but what do you think is the gist of all of this? If you were to just try to grasp hold of the full ramifications of what God is telling us here with these two fellas and what they represent.
So this is what Bereshith Genesis 1:15 means to me. So back in 2007, when I started to read the original Yada Yahweh. The chapter that really grabbed my attention was the Or Light chapter, and that's what brought me to Yada Yahweh. So that's why I'm here. That chapter called Or Light chapter is the reason I'm here today. So I mean, I think other people have had the same experience from, talking to people like not talking, but on Facebook, because it explained the creation account so well. And like, I mean, it makes perfect sense because Yahweh was the only witness to creation, right? I mean, humans were around for billions of years. So it makes total sense that Bereshith, Genesis, creation account is written from Yahweh's point of view, not man's. So why do Christians and Jews focus on, they're looking like backwards from a human perspective? That makes no sense. We weren't human.
We didn't exist for another 14 and a half billion years from the time that he began this process, right?
Yeah, humans didn't witness creation, right? So it makes no sense.
Yeah, Earth time was 10 billion years removed from that opening statement.
Right. I have a few more comments. So
your first comment is you've come full circle. In other words, you have done what Yahweh does in every story that he tells. God's plan is to share something and then come back to it. It's just like our relationship with him began in the garden, it returns to the garden. Everything God says comes full circle. He is a great storyteller in that regard. And with this realization of the Maor and representing light, we've come right back to one of the first things that you and I shared together, which was the Or Light chapter of the first book in the beginning, volume 1 of Yada Yahweh.
Correct. Next comment is just Genesis 1:5 in the King James. It's rendered, and God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. The evening and the morning were the first day, but it shouldn't really be first. It's the word is Echad, not Rishon.
Yeah.
So it should be day one or one day, not first day. And that was one of the things you pointed out in the Or Light chapter.
Yes.
Back in 2007 when I read it. So that is another thing that was neat. So in 2018, I sent you a paper on the irregular plural noun endings. When a masculine noun has an oat ending, or when a feminine noun has an m ending.
Right.
So,
and you resent it about a year ago or less.
Yeah, I did. I think I added a couple words I found. And then
I'm going to tell you that
found some since I sent you the original.
Yeah,
I didn't have that one in my list.
Right. What's interesting, Mike, is that when you sent it to me, I read it, but it didn't really resonate with me. I said, okay, well, this is interesting. Explain some things that I was struggling with as to why that was the feminine ending of these words versus others. But when you resent it to me, it was like a light went off. It was, okay, now I get it. This is really important stuff that God wants to use a metaphor to describe what he's going to accomplish through men. But the ending doesn't, when it's the standard ending for a feminine, to make a noun feminine, he is not taking that male entity and turning it into a female or girl or a woman. He's expanding on our capacity to add emotion to reason, XY as opposed to YY. It's a more expansive thought. And then he says there's very special terms that he's going to take the masculine and not give it the standard ending, but he's going to make the plural of it because he's trying to make this same point. Use the feminine plural on a masculine noun. And, it's anytime you see something that is so unusual, you're not engaging in the way that Yahweh wants if you don't ask why is that. And so when you found those things, the first thing, it begs the question, why did he do that?
Exactly. Yeah. The first one I found was Ab, father, Abot, in Genesis 3:31:3. And Yahweh said unto Jacob, well, this is the King James Version, so
Yes.
pardon the old English or whatever. Return unto the land of thy fathers and thy kindred, and I will be with thee. And so fathers is a boat, not a beam. Well, you would normally think it would be a beam. Is Ab is masculine noun, and I am Yod Mem is the masculine plural ending.
Yeah. You know how I interpreted that? And you're free to disagree, but the way I interpreted that is land of your parents. By taking fathers and giving it a feminine plural, I think it means mothers and fathers. I think it means parents. And it is inclusive of the exceedingly important role that mothers have in raising children, not just fathers.
Okay. Well, my original in 2018, I was trying to figure out what it meant, and what I thought it might have meant was that, like, earthly fathers aren't really our fathers. It's Yahweh's our true fathers. That was my hypothesis or theory at the time. Yours makes sense too.
Yeah. But and both can be right. But the only right answer is to have noticed it, considered it, and made a reasonable deduction based on it. What's wrong is to not notice it, not to think about it, and not to grow as a result of it. That's everything that we have learned and we are expanding our understanding on is all based upon that same concept. Notice what we're seeing, think about it, and respond appropriately to it.
Exactly. We're growing by sharing ideas here.
Yes. And many of those ideas, most of the ideas that we share, came from the original source.
Right. I guess that's all the comments I have for now.
Okay. When Mike looks to his left, our
I'm
right is
looking
we're
at my
looking
other
at him.
monitor.
He has another monitor over there. Just so
I need
that
to
you
move
know.
my monitor somewhere else.
Yeah. So I've got two monitors in front of me and one to the right, but we actually mounted another camera so I can look at you all to the right where I see you on the StreamYard screen, and I have a camera that's pretty close to eye level, and that work. The only place it doesn't work when I'm anybody that is to my right. That would be to Leah, who is actually sitting to my left, and Rich will position himself. He is to my far right, but he's going to appear the opposite side of the screen. So when Leah was talking, and it looked like I was looking away from her, I'm actually looking to her, because if I don't look at her when she's speaking, she thinks I might be ignoring her and not listening to her. And so I'm going to make the mistake of looking away from a camera point of view so that my wife is not angry with me for not paying attention. You need to make eye. One of the things I learned about Leah is that she came out of a marriage where her ex never looked at her. No. She could walk naked through the room. And this dude wouldn't look at her. And I want to tell you, that's a crime against creation right there. But I can tell you, I am never going to make that mistake. But the fact is that he never looked her in the eye, never. And I never really heard anything she had to say. She was a trophy, trophy, to haul out and dress up and the like. And so I am a very active listener, but I do like to look at the people I'm listening to. That's why when you guys are here on the screen, you're all lined up and I can look at you. And as I'm looking at you, it is so much easier to respond than it is if I can't see you. Words alone are not nearly as effective as expressions. And that's why when we went to live streams, and we're using StreamYard as our source, and it's worked beautifully for us. And we now have the video format along with the audio, this is almost infinitely superior. It's like going up in a dimension from three to 4, 2 to 3. It's almost a dimensional increase in the quality of the communication when there's the image of the person that's speaking to.
From Blog Talk Radio, it's infinitely better.
Yeah, it's infinitely better with just audio. Yeah, with audio. And we make some exceptions for Kirk, but for the rest of us, I think it works much better. Just kidding. Kirk is the one person I can kid. Kirk is the one person I can kid with in that regard, and he'll give it right back to me and laugh. So I'll just keep it light. JB. Yeah, Jay. Yeah, listen, I'm gonna, my hobby going forward will be boating and golfing as I make my own golf course. And unless I cheat, Kirk's gonna beat me every time we go out, and that's gonna be humiliating. So I've got to have some one-liners that I can zing him and just do my best Elia impression. Otherwise, I'm just gonna get wiped up.
Bring Elia as your caddy.
Yeah, that's right. I'm gonna. Well, you think Elia's gonna be our caddy? That would be fun to have. Elia would be. My favorite golfer growing up was the Mex. I loved Lee Trevino because Lee Trevino was funny. He's just so entertaining and so self-depreciating. I just thought he was great for comic relief. I mean, everybody on the planet loved Arnold Palmer. I got to meet Arnold Palmer a number of times and spent some time with him, and fell in love with him. Guy. Oh, what a guy! The one time when I met him, I had 2 sons at that point, my 2 boys, and I had a home at Bighorn, and he was playing the Skins game at Bighorn. At the time, there was like 10 members of Bighorn. So as a member of course that he's going to put on an event, and he comes in the night before. Yeah, you've got an undivided audience with him, and I actually got to meet him when I was a very, very young boy. I was a coordinator for a charity tournament that he was at, and I was my responsibility was to take care of Arnie, make sure that Arnie had everything that Arnie wanted, and but I remember this vividly, that when I introduced my son, who was 5 at the time, Ryan, to Arnold Palmer got down on his knee to look my son in the eye and shake his hand in that big, enormous hand of Arnold Palmer and talk to my son about things that were interesting to him. And that's an extraordinary man. And he's one of the most famous men on the planet. And he got down on his knees. That's to look my son in the eye and talk to him. I'll never forget that. Quite a life lesson for me.
Yeah.
I think you're missing the real comic relief right here with these 2.
Yeah, they are. They have quite the love affair going.
Love affair going on here.
So, JB, you're next. That's going to be Dr. Jeff after you. But I just think this is such an important topic. God framing His whole plan going forward with a greater and lesser luminary, and how they're going to enable and fulfill the Mow'ed as exemplars. And this is how He's going to share His light and enlightenment with the world, and that He's going to engage through them. I think it's a pretty marvelous introduction to God's story. But what's your thoughts, JB?
The one that comes to my most right now is thinking, you mentioned earlier about God being more interested in keeping people out than getting people in.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why He tells this the way He does, because first of all, you have to look at it and go, well, how did we have plant life before we had a sun? You got to have that question first, and then you start questioning, okay, so why is this out of order? Then first thing you're going to do is you look up the scientific ideas. That's how my mind works. And you realize, okay, the sun and moon, they weren't created, they became visible on the 4th day, which would have happened because the way the atmosphere was working on Earth at the time. So you can feed to that, but then you go questioning more, like everyone, it says greater and lesser luminary. But everyone, automatically goes, oh, well, sun and moon. But no, He didn't use those terms. There's words for that. Yeah, but you have to get to that point where you have that. You question, you question, why didn't He use sun and moon? Mm-hmm. Why did He use greater and lesser? So, you have to ask all these questions and then seek out the answers before you can come to know it. And that's what God wants. Like you said, that's what Yahweh wants us to do. So yeah, he uses metaphors, but he doesn't explain them. He makes you
Right.
have to do the work to understand it.
Correct.
But it's also genius because it is accurate from a scientific perspective as well. So it works both ways.
It does. Yes. What you're saying is because of the creation of plant animal life, particularly in the oceans, on the third day, recognizing that prior to that time, volcanic eruptions were so common on Earth that the atmosphere was very heavily carbon dioxide, would have been a greenhouse house effect. The atmosphere would have been marginally translucent, but not transparent. You had never been able to see a star or the sun or the moon under those conditions, nor would there have been oxygen-rich environment for higher animal life forms. And so the creation of plant life on the third day, which is the history of our planet too, it's scientifically accurate, would have cleared the atmosphere so that the sun and moon could have served as signs of the years based upon them transforming the atmosphere. And this was the time when the volcanic eruptions began to wane, and therefore there wasn't as much carbon dioxide in the air, and it was replaced by oxygen. So that was a scientific and accurate explanation of what he said, so that the sun and moon were not created. It's just we're able to see the sun and moon, although he didn't mention it by sun and moon. And so our understanding evolved. We had a basic understanding, which is not inaccurate. In fact, it's profound. I think we were the first to actually come up with that explanation. So it is a profoundly intuitive explanation based upon the text. And 20 years ago, we were way ahead of the rest of the world in terms of that explanation. And it resolved the number one argument that atheists wield at creationists by saying that plant life could not have preceded the sun and the moon. We resolved that. And that was pretty cool. And that was in that first book that I wrote under yada yada 20 years ago. Then we went one step further and said, wait a minute, he's talking about Mow'ed, luminaries, not the sun and the moon. And he's speaking of them playing a role relative to the Mow'ed, and the Mow'ed are the 7 annual meetings for us to be called out of this world and enter God's presence. And so we took it one step further with that, didn't we? So we were right on both occasions, but much more in tune with a more complete understanding of the truth. And then as you grow and you learn and you build up a base of knowledge, we took it the third step to say, wow, this was maybe 2 years ago. This is the first prophecy. And God is saying that I've got 2 guys who are going to fulfill the Mow'ed. And you have to recognize at that point that the greater luminary is Dowd, and that he fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bakodim, which we're the first to recognize. So we're the first in a position to say, yeah. And then after that, we figured out that Yada is going to fulfill 2 of them. And then now we say, well, now it makes complete sense as to what God is saying about these 2 luminaries fulfilling Pesach, Matzah, Bakodim, Shavuot, Teruah, Kippurim, and Sukkah. We're the first to understand any of that, and we put all that together. And then this past, 2 or 3 months, when Miss Leah came in and dropped the bombshell of the last word picture, and at the time, she just knew there was something really, really stunningly important here, but didn't make the connection to what this means with a mother and her husband, a wife. Therefore, I wrote the daggone thing. I didn't know it at the time. And I actually referred to myself as Baal as a way of depreciating myself in this story, because in the 31st Mashal, the story is about Leah and Dowd and the relationship she had as a surrogate mother with Dowd as a son, and the way she talked to him as the mother he never had. And so it was important for me to tell that story by saying, yeah, I was there. Yes, I witnessed it. Yes, I care deeply about this, but my role there is to support my wife as her husband. And that's how I wrote myself as Baal, husband, in that, because this was her story. The 89th Mizmor would be mine. But the 31st Mashal is hers. And so,
yes, and I came to an understanding too.
yeah. And then once you understand it, then the only logical implication of this mother being so important in Dowd's life when he had said his own mother was a whore, and he never knew her really, is that this had to be somebody that God inserted into this story, and she's an M. And then Dowd comes out and says, yeah, well, your Amma, and her visits with me, she saved my life. She restored our relationship. I want to thank you for giving me your Amma, your productive mother. And then you say, wait a minute. I've heard that before. And our whole relationship started, Leah's and mine, when she was told to go ask Ruth. And then Ruth is the one who says twice, I am your Amma. And she tells Boaz, I'm going to deliver the kinsman redeemer to you. And Dowd's the kinsman redeemer. And you say, oh my God, we're in deep now. And then you go to, I named Leah, it wasn't Leah. She wanted me to change her name. I said, okay, your name's Leah. And then you have Leah announcing that she is the Ashar, the blessed and beneficial woman. And this whole thing ends saying that this M is the Ashar. And you're going, oh my goodness, we're in really, really, really deep now. And then you say, well, now I've got to finish this story because this didn't get it done with Dowd, because we read the 51st Mizmor and Dowd was still belly aching. And then I knew that the answer was in the 89th. And then we looked up Ethan Hazraki. And that name told us everything, that God inserted this man throughout his storyline. And then you go, so who's the first that God said that to? And then you look up Chanuk, and Chanuk's name means the same thing, that he is somebody that was trained and prepared and reinserted in the timeline. And you say, oh my God, now and then you use that knowledge and you look at the greater and lesser luminary, JB, and your fourth iteration of it is profoundly beyond anything you could have comprehended. Didn't negate anything we had done previously. It's just now infinitely. I mean, it's like going from 3 dimensions to 7. What it is that makes these two fellas, the greater and lesser, older and younger luminary, because in that process, it became obvious that God used the term Bakor, firstborn son of Dowd, for Dowd, because he was Adam. And then I'm out there on the Ocean Studio and I'm reading, I don't know, it was like the 11th Psalm, 11th, 12th Psalm. And then we went into Shamuel, and we're reading about how Yahweh introduced Shamuel to the world, and to Dowd, as he's told Shamuel, no, this is the kid that we're going after. He's in Bethlehem. Oh, by the way, Ruth and Boaz were in Bethlehem too, and he says, I'm going to tell you about this boy. He's Adam. First thing he says, I'm going to tell you about this boy. He's Adam. And then you're going, okay, if he's Adam, then we need to put together when Dowd's multiple lives. I knew of 3 before that. Now it was 4. We need to tell the whole story. And we need to tell our story, how these two greater and lesser luminaries have been buds for 5,400 years. We've been best friends for 5,400 years. So is that the point you're making, is that it's progressive learning?
Yeah. Being married to a teacher, the term they use is scaffolding. You know, their knowledge, it's built upon what you already know. So the more you learn, the more you come to know, and the more you can see. But also, I said about just now, because you were talking about it, last week, Mike had asked about not having memories, but it does seem like there are times when they do. Like with Kyle, it's like if you were born into the world, you're not going to have the memories from your past. But if you just come in it, God just puts you in there for a little bit. He would give you that because that's when you need that.
Correct. Yeah, and I think there's many situations where you're inserted into the timeline. Like I think that when it came to giving birth to Dowd as Emmanuel in 2 BCE, we were inserted in the timeline because we had to know everything about Dowd, everything he represented, the full history of the whole thing. We had to understand what he was there to fulfill, and had to be there to educate him and support him on who he is, what his prior lives, because he was being born to us. So he needed someone as parents that would not only support him through this whole process and be there for him through the whole process, but reacquaint him with exactly who he is. And what better person than the one that wrote the 89th Mizmor along with Yahweh. And so, there are times you're just inserted. I think there's an insertion in the Dowd and Mow'ed episode.
And the 31st Mizmor is nothing more than, let me introduce my wife.
Yes. And I think part of it too, though, is that the personality with the soul never changes.
No.
Yeah.
So it has to be the exact same personality, same attributes, attitudes, approaches. As you go through the various people that were represented by the greater and lesser luminaries, the whole thing has to be consistent in terms of the souls and their personalities. And I do think that because God doesn't allow those souls to ever function without his spirit, whether it's 1 or 7, I don't think he ever releases them without his spirit. He may have in the first example, but after that, if they're redeployed, they're coming with spiritual protection and guidance, and somewhere along the way, it's like in this particular life, I made it through the first 20 years or 22 years without a single vision of things that were before me or things that were behind me. In the last year and a half, that has not been the case. The last year and a half, I have seen my past, I've seen my future. So sometimes it just takes time. You don't need to know before you need to know. And then when you need to know, you really need to know. Yeah.
So ask me what I think.
Well, okay. You're going to be next, Leah. So your was that it's layers. JB. Yeah, that's what I think. We've come to know, and each step of the way we've made connections. Most of them have been right. Well, I mean, probably have a 98% track record here of being right, but not complete. And hopefully we're never complete. Hopefully we complete the mission to the extent that God needs it done, but that our understanding is never complete, because that would be the end of growth, the end of learning. All right, we have Miss Leah. I'm going to look to my left. She is sitting off to the right on the screen. But okay, Miss Leah.
So the one thing that was evident to me in the terms of being able to count on souls being the same over time. While I do think that's true, particularly Dowd through his lives and he had the same trip ups more than once, specifically around women.
Yes.
Which is why he needed a good talking to.
That was my first recognition that Adam was Dowd.
Yeah.
Was that his trip up around Chawa versus his trip up around Bathsheba, and the failures that resulted before and after.
In both. Yes.
Exactly the same circumstances. I have heard this story. Where have I heard this?
This is so familiar. Yeah. So I came to understand through Michelle 31 I had this errant understanding that it was Yahweh's Amma. Cool, Yahweh chose me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized that's
Mhm.
not, after realizing Hanuk is involved,
Mm-hmm.
and that was most likely you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was a little not happy with Yahweh, because he would know me. I would expect he would know my heart, and that I don't like to be a public figure.
Mhm.
and that I don't like to be upfront. I don't like fame. I don't like shaking hands and kissing babies. That's not me.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I know that you chose me,
I did. I did.
it all makes
and
sense.
I made you a requirement.
It all makes sense.
I told well, I'm not doing this unless I can bring my woman with me. And so he was the one who acquiesced. But you have to understand.
And
that
so
God-
the very long argument of whose gift
Yeah,
is whom
yeah,
is totally settled.
Yeah, but you're pretty clever at the way that we found each other in the Ruth and Boaz story. We're going to tell that story.
such a
I'm going to
parallel.
translate all of it and share it with you, because it's now my favorite story in all of the Torah, prophets, and Psalms is the Ruth and Boaz story. And so we're going to tell that. And there's parts of it's a little bit embarrassing here and there, but it's just a marvelous story. But the fact is that Leah gets what she wants to. She's very intuitive as to how to establish relationships and how to be noticed. But the fact of the matter is, when I negotiated with Yahweh, stay in character, say, I'll do this, sure. We'll redeploy, but I want to redeploy with the same woman. And it was like when I negotiated with God at the beginning of this venture. And God said, yeah, sure, that's I'll do all three of those things. And he says, oh, reach in your pocket, by the way. I made that decision that I would do all these three things 3,000 years ago. So congratulations, you negotiated very well. And he just felt, oh, okay, well, that's really good. This is the exact same thing. He's trying to model the covenant relationship. He's trying to show how a mother and father are supposed to raise a son, and our job is to raise Dowd and to support
the
Dowd.
Torah.
Yeah.
We are supposed to raise our children in the Torah.
Yeah.
Haga Torah.
So anyway, that's God said, yeah, sure, because of course that's the whole plan. Dowd didn't need just a father; he needed a father and mother. That's why in the 22nd Mizmor he stops, everything to say, first of all, I'm really happy that I was born the old-fashioned way, and that I could grow and be protected and learn and feel supported by my mother. And then he mentions that he had me there every step of the way, that everything from crucifixion to the venture into hell, we were inseparable. One wouldn't allow the other to do anything without the support. And
I can tell you that's true, because even when Blake would take a car trip, he would navigate his way through.
I would
Almost the whole time.
every step of the way. Every time my son had any calamity, and he was
Many
calamity.
calamities. Oh my God.
I don't think I ever met anyone that could find trouble as easily
With women, same
particularly
thing.
with women, but with everything in life. It's because my son is. He has an IQ up north of 180, so
Definitely.
he cognates the world very differently than most people, and the world does not take kindly to people who think
No.
far more judgmentally and faster than everyone else. And so he was always estranged from most people. They didn't think the same way he did, and he had such good character and such a great heart in a world filled with people who are mean-spirited and selfish.
And bullies.
And so they take advantage of people like my son. So he was always in trouble, and not of his own doing, but God, I bet there's 20 times when I hopped on my airplane and said, I'll be where you are, and
Mr. Fix-It.
we'll get this resolved. And it went one time. I actually had to get the chancellor of a university fired and had to work with the board of regents to get the hierarchy of the university fired because of the way they treated my son following an accident they were responsible for. So when it comes to protecting my son, I'm good at it.
All in.
I'm all in, and I don't care who you are. You're not going to prevail if I'm protecting my son. I'm going to get the job done. I think many of you know Ken Starr. I made certain that Ken Starr could not stay with that university based upon what he did to my son.
And he did not.
And he did not. I'm
I
here to
remember
tell you
that.
I'm and the letters that I wrote are some of the most powerful letters ever written in my life in protection of my son. And so I would pick personalities that I have skill sets that he liked, and the one that he wanted in me was the protection of the son.
Very bullish protection.
Yeah. My son, by the way, we had an estrangement because of the fact that his
Yes, we
mother
did.
is borderline personality disorder, and you can't solve that, and it's suffocates everything around it. It destroys everything. And I told my son, I said, so long as you expose yourself to her, she's going to destroy you. And there was a while where I could not keep them apart. And I just said, son, I'm going to have to back off until you learn your lesson the hard way here, and I'll be there when you do. But a week ago, he picked up the phone. We had a 3-hour conversation about life, and things turned out in his life exactly as I had told him they would. And we just had a wonderful coming back together. And so things have a tendency.
Well, in
to
between,
work
there
out.
was a quickie marriage to a copycat of his mother.
He did. He married his mother. Bad idea, but he did.
I met Blake
both
at
months.
JB's house
Yes.
at one Pesach. That was right. Well, I think he was there twice, wasn't he, JB?
3
2
times.
years. And
Yeah.
so I met him I think it was twice.
Yeah.
But one time he came after the accident, the chemical accident, where he had
Yes.
like green spots all because of the
Yeah, he
copper,
did.
or whatever acetate or whatever the compound was that blew up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. A good kid though. Smart.
Yeah.
Great heart. Sincere. I'm sure that when JB, you had him as a guest multiple times when he was in Waco, Texas. You were in the Dallas area, and he's just charming, genuine, great young man of character.
Got along great.
Yeah. Dr. Jeff, you've been uniquely quiet this evening, but we're going to give you the opportunity to resolve that quiet.
Got it. Thank you. Well, I just want to say that these last few weeks, especially this last week, have been quite extraordinary. And the two terms I'm thinking about are Badal and Tamim. But before I say that, I just want to say that your brain, Craig, Chota, has been working at Mach 7 as the Covenant family is guided and route to heaven because your son Dowd dispensed of our leaven. That being said, the other night when you started talking about Mashal 34, who has ascended to the heaven, who has ascended.
It's 30.
I want to tie this in with the Ma'or and light with Hanuk.
Yes.
Okay, because that ties in with the greater and lesser luminaries, and I want to make the point that both you and Dowd, Yada and Dowd, are linked together. The Etz Hada'ath and Etz Achayim, and that you both represent and define the word Tamim. Not perfect,
Yeah.
but
complete.
complete, and you finish and you get you get the
Get the
job.
job done.
You get the job done.
Yeah. That mashal that you were talking about is the one before the 31st. It's the 30th. And it
Yes.
adds two questions that I've always just assumed that it was talking about. Do you know his name, and do you know his son's name? And which is would be Iowa and Dowd, but that's not the context, and it's actually not the question. And it's actually presented as, do you know Yada?
Do you know?
And do you know Yada's son's name? And it's you wouldn't know it unless you have built this lattice, this foundation of knowledge. That's really the question and the whole process. And when you're turning now to Yoel 2, the entire thing is about this process and the ultimate role between what Yada and Dowd do to resolve the fall of man.
It was quite extraordinary. And as I mentioned to you in a conversation, is that while Yahweh has the dibs, you both, Yada and Yahweh and Yada, share parental rights with Dowd.
Mm-hmm.
And that he is your son. And the way that Mashal was written under the auspices and guidance of a wonderful pseudonym, and the way it ended in a double entendre, do you know his name, when referring to your son's name, Yada, was, I thought, quite extraordinary. And quite brilliant.
My son's name is Dowd, and quite literally, I would and have gone to hell for him.
You have.
I have been crucified. I've been literally and figuratively crucified for him. It's a deep devotion, a tremendous love and compassion, and it goes back a lot of years. I've known Dowd probably within a few years as long as I've known Leah.
Yeah, I mean, basically, we go from Hanuk to Noah, Dowd to Shem.
Yes, yeah, it's Noach to Shem. We were father and son back then. That's when Dowd really proved himself. And then as Shem, he got to see what a husband and wife would accomplish if you set yourself apart from society and you listen to what God has to say and you do what he asks. He got to see the miracle of the ark and how it represents the covenant, that he would ultimately be the person who would exemplify, and he would be the one who actually initiate and causes the covenant to happen. And he learned a lot of that as Shem aboard the ark. It's such a powerful reinforcement of a story, and you have an affinity for somebody. It was always I was mocked for my bromance with Dowd, because for like 3 years before I even knew he was our savior, before I knew he fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bekurim, I just loved his intellect. I loved his style. I loved his courage. I loved his passion. I just thought, this man knows how to live life. He is the guy that everybody's cowered with Goliath. And before he flings the stone, he gives Goliath lip. He said, "You filthy, uncircumcised Philistine, how dare you slander the name of our God?" And so he's given the person everybody is cowered from. And, he tries to put on the armor of Shaul, and it doesn't fit worth a damn because he's not big enough yet to wear it. He says, "I don't need any of that stuff." And he goes right up against him. There's the picture of the house of Dowd, and he's running all over the place and genuflecting and doing somersaults. BS, no.
That's not in the story.
No, he looked him straight in the eye and said, "You ugly, foul-mouthed, uncircumcised Philistine, how dare you
Yeah.
insult my God?"
There you go.
And he says, boom. And then once he did the first Muslim prostration right there, like a good Philistine, he cut off his head and he held up his head. He says, "So what do you like? What do you think about this, folks?"
Cut it off with his own sword.
Yes,
With Goliath's own sword.
absolutely.
David didn't have a sword. Dowd didn't have a sword.
Yeah.
There you go. And I'd just like to remind everybody that also
He cut off
that's
Goliath's sword, didn't he?
Yeah. He used
Yeah.
Goliath's sword to cut
Yeah,
off
I think
Goliath's head.
Yeah, I just think everything about this, and he was talking about his time as a shepherd. He's 8 years old. Sometime around 6, he goes and attacks lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my!
Oh my.
Barehanded. I'll take them.
So
All Dowd had was a
asked, what do you
walking
think?
stick, a sling, and 5 stones.
Yeah.
Yes.
From Messiah to our Savior, and if anyone has a question about that, he is El Elyon. Got to know what that means. El Elyon.
Yeah.
For those who
Elyon.
question.
Yeah. He's the influence of Almighty God in our presence, and to love what God loves, to support what God supports. It's the ultimate best investment of lives and lyrics, and the thing that we came to so love Dowd over is, first of all, he was a great lover, and he a lover of life, but a lover of words. Man had a way with words.
Oh, he did.
He's a poet.
Yeah, and he's a lovable rogue. I love lovable rogue characters.
Yeah.
I was so pleased when Leia and the team, when I was talking about the role of Indiana Jones and of Han Solo, so they decked me out with the hat and with the overall look, so that I was the lovable rogue of adventures looking for the Ark of the Covenant, and
Hey.
I see that a lot of that in Dowd.
Well, hey. Well, you got it, because I'll tell you, call you Crag on Fire. There were 2 more instances in the last few days that were quite amazing and stunning. One of them was when you went through Hosha and basically redefined and had a greater appreciation and understanding for the terms Baal and Baalim,
Yeah, that's good.
and why Yahweh could not remarry the bride. Why it has to be his son.
Right.
And what was meant by that.
Yeah.
And this ties in again with Baal, Baalim, with Ruth, and the whole story just makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
It
when
makes
Yahweh says, I was a husband, I was Baal to you, and then he said through a prophet that he asked to marry a temple prostitute so that he would empathize what it's like to be married to Israel, a religious whore. And then God says, "I'm going to divorce you. This is my letter of divorce. I'm going to file it in the Torah standard." Then ultimately says, you're going to change, and when you change, I'll come back to you. You return to me, I'll return to you, and you'll be my children again. He can't remarry them because that would be in conflict with the Torah, but his son can. Mm-hmm. And so when you realize that that's the way that it happens, and then you realize that Numbers 5 is the groom, and Numbers 5 is Dowd. And the woman in Numbers 5 is the one that is restored by the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah in Numbers 19, and that she becomes the ideal bride for our king. And oh my goodness, the way the story fits together, and the thrill of being the first person to see how the story fits together and understand it, and what had to be between 2,500 and 3,000 years. I mean, it's invigorating. It's inspiring.
It's beyond inspiring. And then the other point that was made, which was really so key, is that the term Baalim is a positive term, because it's just telling us, do not, under any circumstance, any shape, way, or form, affiliate any false/pagan gods with the term or my title Baalim.
Right.
Not that the title Baalim is bad and negative, but don't you conflate it, and don't you dare do it. And that's what every damn Abrahamic religion does.
Yeah, they did. They replaced Yahweh with Baal, and that's what the reason that Yahweh pulled Elia out of the line of duty and said, "Yeah, that was really impressive what you did with the roast of the bull," and the criticism of the prophets that were pretending to speak for Baal and Asherah. That was really cool what you did. That was the best thing I've ever seen. I've got a job for you. It's going to be the same job, by the way. You're going to roast another bull. We're going to do it together. I'll light the fire all over again. I'll even provide the water this time. We'll have the water carriers. And we're going to go through exactly the same routine. But this time it's going to have a much more profound effect. This will be a great story. We'll end the story this way. And that's how Elia goes full circle. 2,888 years between acts, and that number's not by accident. And he's doing exactly the same things. He's purging the religiosity of Yisrael so that she's ready for not only the return, but the grand wedding. And that's why there's a chuppah for Sukkah. It's a wedding tent. And God's very clear that Dowd is the bride, and the purged former whore of Israel is the bride, and Dowd is the groom, and we're going to have a wedding. Yom Kippurim is a wedding, and Sukkah is the honeymoon. It's marvelous.
It's
Leah's going to be making the apparel for all us to wear. We're going to be looking good.
There you go. I just want to finish by saying that the dynamic duo characterized by Dowd, who fulfills Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, 4,000 Yah. Then we have Yada, who is in the process of cultivating the seeds for the Shabbat harvest. And then Dowd and Yada come together to fulfill the fall Mikra that have not been fulfilled yet. And that's going to be in the fall of 2033.
Yeah. But even in that, we're all work together. When I read, as I say again, Yoel 2, the same cast of characters that are right here. I'm here to tell you, fellas, that our working vacation from Shabbat to return on Passover in 2030, it's a working vacation, but we're actually being prepared for what we do collectively, not only over the next 3.5 years and working all around in anticipation of the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah, but over the next 1,000 years after that.
So good, yeah.
And this website that we have of yadaya.com, and the library that's there, and the vlogs that are there, and everything that is in the communication format, and you're now part of that, Kirk. Thank you for joining in. That is exactly the way we're going to be operating for the next 1,000 years.
The last point I want to make, which is totally mind-blowing, mind-numbing, for anyone who has any questions and for any naysayers, when you recently went over Yirmiyah 31, 1 through 3, we've been saying, a number of us in the covenant have been saying, yada yada to yada Yahweh. Well, guess who said it long before we ever came to that conclusion?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yada, he's telling you. So Christians, Jews, Muslims, whoever you may be, whatever you may be, if you belong to the Mother Goddess cult, yada yada. The prophets have spoken.
Yes. Yeah, that was a powerful part of Yirmiyah 31 that I didn't mention this evening, but we've talked about previously, where Yahweh says that going forward over this next 1,000 years, Jews are not going to teach Jews anymore. There'll be no more rabbis. There'll be no more Jewish sages. There'll be no more Jews teaching Jews.
Hallelujah.
And he says everyone is going to yada Yahweh. That's exactly what he says. So this will be this is the textbook going forward. I guess it's over here on this side. This is the textbook going forward. That's even Cat's Ear Harvest. But yada Yahweh, by the way, with the mayor at the top of the menorah, that is who we are and what we're doing going forward. That is our textbook, and our library is at yadayah.com. It's nice the way the whole thing is fit together just at the perfect time. Now I just hope that I have enough time to finish these last two books because they have so much new information in them that I'm really hopeful that we get them done. But thank you, Dr. Jeff. Kevin, good time for you to, if you don't have vocals, can you call in?
Try this. Is this working okay?
That works.
Yep.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Well, going last, all the good insights are already taken. You know.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So,
There's more than you can count.
all I can really go with is that it's fascinating that we have this having two similar concepts overlapping and keeping them in your head as you're going through and studying Torah, with the sun and the moon and the lesser and greater luminaries. So having to pick out in the Torah where we are dealing with a Gadol and a Katan Maor being Dowd and his Bashar, and then when it's actually speaking of the sun and the moon for the Moedim. Keeping those things, both concepts in your mind as you read through is a difficult process. I don't think that Yahweh is keeping people out that way. I think it's just a natural neshama level meter that people have to meet. I think he would be happy with everybody getting it. He just knows that with religion and politics and neshamas being broken at this time, it ain't going to happen. So he's a pragmatist,
Well, I think there's a truth both ways. God is definitely not one who likes a crowd. He is not, everything you read, he's not an extrovert. He just isn't. And he's never been interested in really large crowds. He's always thinned the herd. And he very seldom works with more than one person at a time. And so he's just not into large crowds. And what he recognized is that he would have been happy with just Adam. Had Adam measured up in that first life, he'd have been happy with that. And God's not looking for quantity. He's just looking for quality. What he's offering us is so phenomenal in terms of the increase. Most people just don't have an appreciation for dimensions and how going from 3 dimensions to 4 isn't like a 25% increase. It's an infinite increase, in fact, if with our present capacity, our minds and our eyes and our ears, and as we are as 3-dimensional beings, if we were exposed to the fullness of the 4th dimension, we would go insane in an instant. It would be so loud, so bright, so many options, so many choices, our mind couldn't process it. So our minds have to be expanded, and our capacity and capabilities and aptitudes have to be expanded at the same time that our dimensionality is expanded. And we're not just going from 3 to 4, but from 4 to 5 and 5 to 6 and 6 to 7. Each of those is an infinite increase. And by the time you get to be a 7th dimensional being, you can now speak the material universe into compliance. You can cause it to do anything you want. And some of those things you might want could be really caustic, hurt people and hurt things and be disastrous. And so God's got to be really careful because he's going to make you immortal. And so you're going to have to get along with people for a really long time. He's got to make certain he's got people who are going to have similar values, that are all observant, thoughtful, responsive, and reliable. You know, he's going to write his Torah instructions inside of us, but we still need to pay attention to what he said and operate on those guidelines.
Right. Right.
And so I think he is being quite selective.
Yeah, the other word that's mentioned in Barashith here is that kind of gets pushed to the side a little bit is kokab, and typically translated as stars, right? And the heavenly bodies here, I believe, in addition to the spiritual luminaries. Okay, but that's not the Saba. There's a different class there with kokab. It's not the Saba, which is the heavenly host. Okay,
right.
There's another level above that. Who are these kokab people? You know, as opposed to them being, because if it's not the sun, as we see the sun in the sky and the moon, then why are we referencing kokab in the same thing? Who are these people that are being mentioned as well? You know, that are not.
Yeah, and I think they are. That's God is being inclusive of all those who are making contributions to the covenant family. They are so important that none of these jobs can be done alone, and so he has other luminaries that contribute to the process. And you're correct. These luminaries are not the Saba. They are not the heavenly host of command and control spiritual messengers that Yahweh uses elsewhere. It's a very different class. And now, when Yahweh wanted to impress on Abraham, who never did understand what he was inheriting, and then Yahweh took him to the kokab, and he says, "This is what you're inheriting." He's not talking about the stars.
Right.
Talking about becoming light. And so these are the other covenant members that are now beacons of light. And that's what he's talking about. That's what he talked about. That's what the message he was trying to convey to Abraham. As light, you are E equals MC squared, greater than you are now. You're freed of the physical body. You become immortal. You become enlightened. You're emancipated. You're enabled. You're empowered. This is what I'm offering you. And so these kokab are exactly what God was offering his covenant children. Yeah, I do. I think it's powerful to recognize it in light of what he will later share with Abraham.
Kakab, is that cough, bet spelled?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So it'd be palm, house.
Yes.
So it's like when you give somebody something, you use your, put in your palm and give it to them.
Right.
So it's like 2 palms.
And this is somebody, right? Two of them.
palms,
You're offering it all, man. I'm offering it all. I'm offering my home and everything that is in it.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
Not bad.
Understatement.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's Tob. That's good.
Or all the hands that go together to support the covenant, the house.
Yes, and it takes a lot of hands. And from God's point of view, that's an influence that we are offering. And of course, there's the 5 hands in Yahweh's name, and the 5 conditions and 5 benefits of the covenant, and 5 fingers in our hands. And yeah, it all does tie together. But the cough is definitely the palm of an open hand, and the Beth is a house. Excellent. Well, Rich, it is now your turn over there. He looks at me, says, "Oh, you didn't. I was hiding here behind everything. I can't see Rich, but he's going to pop himself onto a screen and push a button that brings himself in. He has a microphone over there, and he heard all of this show and the previous show. It's hard to pay attention, of course, to the programs when you're doing the management of it, but What do you think there, my friend? I know you've shared a lot with me privately. These last few days been pretty extraordinary.
Once again, Yahweh is going to logically lay it out, and it makes complete and total sense that he literally introduces you this quickly.
Mm-hmm.
He sets the stage of how people should have been interpreting this 2,000 years ago.
Yes.
It's not a physical being. It's explaining the creation process, but it's the fourth day. These are literally, using your technique, and nobody else uses your technique. But when you take all the primary functions of Hebrew grammar, this is exactly what it says. And he's basically giving you a sneak peek into what's coming throughout the rest of the Torah.
Yeah.
Ties it and wraps it in with the 89th Mizmor. This whole story of Ruth and how this all ties together, what the covenant's going to be like for us.
Yeah, he's modeling the covenant.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah,
it makes me happy.
Yeah, he's modeling the covenant through the whole thing, and he's telling you how he goes from creation to the purpose for creation.
Yeah.
And how he is able to achieve the intent of creation by working through these luminaries, because he does not want to ever work alone. He created us so that he could work with us. He's constantly saying, I want to work with you.
They're
And-
his children because they're covenant. And
Exactly.
they've been covenant for a long time. That's the whole point of Ruth. Why is it she was covenant? Because Naomi, for 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
taught her the
Yes,
covenant.
right. And God has a very consistent approach to everything.
Yeah.
And the covenant is his heart's desire. And the whole purpose of the covenant is to raise children and to do fun things, productive things with his family. And he is exemplifying that in these two luminaries. And he's achieving the desired result through these two luminaries. And he's explaining how we get from creation to resolution
Yep.
in these two luminaries.
And it's essentially, these are his kids already. They're
Yeah.
already his kids.
They're already his kids. Yeah, his firstborn, and I think he would look at it as his secondborn.
Yeah.
Yep. And his thirdborn with his daughter. And it's interesting that Dowd doesn't have a love of his life until we come full circle in Bamidbar, Numbers 5.
Yep.
With Eliah being the officiant. And that's when Dowd is introduced to the love of his life, and she is curated by Leah, his mother.
Oh, how he's weaved this all together.
Yes, and she's the one who taught him how to deal with women, because he was not very good at it with his prior mother. And so she teaches him how to deal with women. She gets this woman all prepared for him, and he now has the love of his life.
It's how we get to thousands. We're looking for thousands.
Yeah, well, the nice thing is, and Kevin, you were talking about exclusion versus inclusion, what God's plan is. I think that he is really able, with a very small number of people for Shabbat and a small number of people on Teruah, to have any number that he wants as a result of Sukkah, because we will have a remnant that will be essentially babies. They will be hours old in knowledge of Yahweh. And we have 1,000 years to get them educated, knowledgeable, responsive, thoughtful, responsible, so that God can determine who among those will have impressed him to the point they earn the right to become seven-dimensional too. And it'd be a great joy because, again, we're put in a position where God's not keeping score based upon quantity. but quality. And so long as we focus on the qualities he's looking for, the quantity doesn't mean anything to him. Makes it much easier.
This is the kind of prophecy that needed to be revealed at the right time. If this was done 1,000 years ago, how would they have twisted that?
Yeah, and I think this also fits into the where we are in the time where we are, as well as inclusion versus inclusion. Once you recognize how the players in God's story act throughout the entire storyline, and then who those players are, that is so far beyond the ability of most people to process and accept. And I've been asking Perrick, because he monitors the chat. You know, we might have 1,000 or so comments on YouTube when we're doing a program like this, sometime more than 1,000. And what he has said is that something really remarkable has happened over these last month or so. And that is, we've gone from a chat that was just friendly, and somebody says, welcome to the program, and what's going on in your life, and how are you? To he says now the comments are all focused on the topic. Everyone is learning, making a contribution, and growing because they're focused on what we're learning and how it applies to their lives and makes them better equipped to do the job that we've been asked to fulfill. So I think that's a really good sign. He says, there is nobody that is part of the core group of the covenant family that's saying, I don't feel comfortable with that. And yet anybody that isn't part of the core covenant family, that hasn't grown up with all of this and have that knowledge base, are going to say, are you out of your mind? Yep. You're saying, what are you saying? So it's the perfect filter at the perfect time.
Yeah.
It's so maturing for the core group and so off-putting for everybody else.
Yeah.
It's exactly the way it's supposed to be at this time.
Yeah, to think about how intimate and personal Yahweh is, and that his whole plan is literally being laid out before a very small group of people right now. And this is exactly who he is seeing. This is what he has wanted. And so if you're listening to this over this last few weeks, it's important. Really is. Yeah. It's really remarkable. And it is intimate and personal. It's exactly what it is. And it's intensely intimate.
And it's okay if you're not part of this core group. Because if you continue to learn and you continue to be open to this core group, then you'll be part of not only be part of those who are welcomed into the garden, not only have a chance for the participating in the teruah harvest, but you'll be among those who are welcomed into the garden. And once there, you're way ahead of most others in terms of the process of learning and responding and demonstrating your reliability to Yahweh, where you'll absolutely become covenant. You'll have the opportunity to do that. And if you're serious about this process, even if you don't make the Shavua harvest and you're not ready for this level of commitment, God's going to keep your soul safe during this next 7 years so that you're there when it matters, and when this opportunity happens to return to the garden.
Yeah,
you're going to be key among those, top tier among those who return. So that's okay too. And I think that's the way it is being established now, is that we're all in and committed because we know that we have a job for the next 1,007 years. Don't know what comes after that other than a new universe and new opportunities, and it's going to be grand fun. But we know what we're going to be doing for the next 1,007 years, and it's going to be a ball, and God's enormously happy with it, and we have our responsibility. The king has his responsibility. We support him, and he's sovereign. But for him to be able to be sovereign over that mortal remnant, they need guidelines. They need teaching. They need structure. They need to exercise good judgment. And we're going to be responsible for conditioning the mortal remnant to be outstanding subjects of the king, so that everybody embraces Dowd and goes forward. I don't know if they're going to love him as much as we do, but they don't have to love him as much as we do.
What a
But
plan.
that would be extraordinary. Perry, you're off on the far side there. You can scoot over and get the microphone and share what your thoughts are. On all
Well,
of
you
this.
asked me about the luminaries. I think in terms of understanding for the luminaries,
Mhm.
you know, and I see the greater luminary as the big picture. Dowd basically brought out the Torah in a big picture.
Mhm.
The lesser luminary is the fine details, so to
Mhm.
speak, the forest versus the trees.
Mhm.
And that's how I see the luminaries.
Yeah, well, Dowd
You're
is
bringing
clear,
out
big
the
picture.
detail of the trees. Dowd brought out the big picture of the forest.
Yeah, the sun is 400 times larger than the moon, and just in diameter, not of course is much larger than that in terms of volume and mass. And it is 400 times closer to us at this point than the sun. The moon doesn't generate any light; it just reflects the sun's light, and so the sun is the big picture. And the moon's job is just to reflect that light, and that's an important job. But it's and particularly if you can reflect it and show the color gradients and all of the hues and the details that make the sun so brilliant, and explain how it operates and why it works and what the benefits are, then you're having the big picture presented in a way that's helpful.
You need them both.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I came to realize is that as inadequate as I view myself relative to Dowd, the fact is that it doesn't matter how great Dowd is or what Dowd achieved.
Nobody knows.
If his life is not reintroduced properly and acclaimed, it's all for naught.
Keep in mind, though, that that Yahweh refers to you still, whatever you think of yourself, as Gadolim.
Yeah.
They're both
Yeah,
Gadolim.
and the fact is that that Dowd wouldn't be the Dowd we know if I wasn't given the opportunity to intervene and deliver the 89th Mizmor to him. He became the Dowd we know because of the support we provided, and so it is a collective process. We're not independent of one another. You know, my job is to support him and to acclaim him, but that support and acclaim is every bit as not every bit, but certainly very significant. You don't get to see the whole picture without the one acclaiming him and reflecting his light, sharing it with you.
What are the odds of the sun being 400 times bigger than the moon, and the moon being 400 times closer than the odds are astronomical that would happen, right? So
Correct.
how can there be an atheist? I never have.
Yeah,
I mean, since I knew that,
Agree.
Yes.
there's no
Yeah.
way. I mean,
Yeah.
and plus, okay, so there wouldn't be any life on Earth without the sun and the moon, because the moon generates the tides, ocean tides.
Yes. Yeah, it wouldn't be any life on the Earth without the moon. You know, it is interesting too. I don't know if any of you have witnessed the Artemis 2 photographs on the far side of the moon.
Yes, they're pretty.
There's a picture of the Earth in moon glow, where the Earth is, none of the Earth is highlighted by the sun's light, and it's a reflected light off the moon's surface at night on the Earth. and it shows our planet at night, but in moon glow. And there's others that show the backside, the dark side of the moon, with the Earth rising above it. And there's another that shows the sun in the full eclipse of the moon, but it was a 40-minute eclipse from their perspective, so that the sun was in full eclipse by the moon, perfectly sized, for 40 minutes. And then around this silhouetted sun, you had 5 planets that were visible. Venus, Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Just stunning. And of course, it wasn't even possible until we had digital cameras that had a much greater dynamic range, and where you could dial up the ISO to 5,000 versus the top film. Back in the days of the Apollo program was probably an ISO of 200, and now you can dial up the ISO to 5,000, and they were using a Nikon D5. But it's just to show not only our place in this universe and how special the Earth is, but how important the moon is, and the relationship to the sun, the moon, and the Earth. It's never been presented more vividly, more dramatically than it was in these last 3 days. While we were celebrating Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, we were shown the relationship between the sun, the moon, and the Earth in a way that we humans could never have imagined. I would encourage everyone, if you haven't seen these pictures, I can't look at them without getting teary-eyed. They're that moving. They're that magnificent of what God has created for us, and the relationship between these things, and why he chose those as his metaphors. Well, this has been exactly the normal length of our show. We've gone longer before, but never have we had a program that was this well distributed in terms of everybody contributing. And I think it worked beautifully, because I think this is the role that we all have going forward. And it just shows such depth of growth and understanding and love and support for one another, and how far we've come and how quickly we are maturing and growing, and the fact that we've embraced our responsibility. There's no one running from the responsibility anymore. We know who we are. We know what our job is, and we're going to do this job. We are absolutely going to see it to its rightful conclusion. And we're going to do it for our King. We're going to do it for our Father. And we're going to do it for one another. We have an obligation and responsibility for one another. We don't survive without all of us. We all make a contribution. We're all needed to get this done.
Yeah. Can you send me Coming Home 5?
What I have done is I started writing Coming Home 4 by translating the next three Mizmor in chronological order that I had not done. And then I went from there as kind of the Spirit led. And I had written about 600 pages. And then I started Coming Home 5, which I'm still calling Coming Home 4. But I returned to it because of what we were learning in Mashal 31, the last word picture. It so fundamentally shook our perception of who we are and what we're doing at this time that I just had to go to it. And so I started a whole new volume with it. And I started with the 31st Mashal, and then realized I can't start there. I have to start in Genesis 1 with the greater luminaries. And I can't leave the story of the sun and the moon until I have shared the great prophecies of the sun and the moon. And the two of the greatest ones are in Yeshaya 13, which I've now concluded, and Yoel 2, but it's not just Yoel 2, it's also Yoel 3. And that thing is so packed with insights that, every passage, every statement of it is just a thrill. Most of it's really profound, and it speaks vividly of who we are and what we're doing. But this last one was how this northerner who has tried to hide his identity is going to be driven away at this very moment. We're fulfilling Teruah, and God says, "Yeah, I'm going to dispatch him." And before we send him off to Sheol, I'm going to have him stretched out. He wanted to pretend like he was God in control of the world. His face is going to be over the Sea of Contention in the east, which is the Persian Gulf, and his arse is going to be over the sea in the end, the very end of the sea in the west, and he has been so grotesquely egotistical and so harmful that he is going to emit a stench like you have never smelled before. He's going to be the foulest smelling thing in the history of the world. And so you realize we know we're talking about Donald Trump, and we know that he is the first president ever to poop in his pants, and that everybody that's close to him says he stinks to high heaven. And this is what God says about him. It goes full circle to Eliah and said, we'll wait around. I know your God is in the bathroom, he's taking a crap, and when he's done, we'll move on. And this is exactly how Yahweh says, I'm going to deal with that piece of crap that we know is Donald Trump, who is Satan incarnate. It's just curious, but you would never know until you get so many of the pieces put together. Prior to that, it's just yada yada through and through. Here we are in it, and it has the team that is Team Yah all working together, and it's just subtleties like it is the mature and prominent members of the harvest who have returned, and our desire is to include and support and to move the youngest among us into the proper position. The youngest among us are going to be the remnant who is just hours old in their relationship with Yahweh, and our desire to care for them. And so it's just detail after detail on what we've come to know, all creating layers of understanding in the midst of what is a tragic war. And that tragic war, when you combine the two next mother or moon and sun references, and Isaiah 13, he describes the nation that these militants come from, and it's Iran. Yeah. And explains how they get into Israel and what damage they do, and how God has to eliminate it in the end. And it's a powerful picture of what's going to happen in our future and how it's all resolved.
Well, that vlog that you did, the most recent vlog that you and Kevin did, was beyond extraordinary with the insights.
Yeah, I think we were well beyond what anybody else has reported on what was the motivation for Donald Trump to surrender. How did he end up surrendering and not even knowing that he had surrendered? What was the Iranian response to this, and what were the 10 points, and what was said and what was meant by what was said? But it's obvious that we were right. Donald Trump never read the 10-point plan. Yeah. He has thought that he was so hot that he could such the negotiator that he would make up the terms as he went along. Yeah. He was having an imaginary negotiation. And so the Pakistani says, yeah, they've got a 10-point plan. Let's go with that. And he said, yeah, let's go with that. Victory. And it's total capitulation and defeat. And then we talk about what the motivations were and what it's going to lead to.
I guess after what Yoel 2 says, it's called the fart of making a deal.
Yes. It's an epic failure.
Absolute failure.
Did you say fart in the deal?
Yeah.
Yeah, the fart of the deal. Yeah, the fart of the deal because he's a real stinker. And and it's epic failure. One of the great things now is that there's so many people who have come to recognize what we did, and I announced 5 or 6 days ago that was not a pilot rescue mission. It was a failed mission to
Capture uranium.
Yeah, capture the uranium. Unless that pilot's name was
Mr. Uranium.
Yeah, Captain Uranium. No, and it was an epic failure. I mean, they lost 2 C-130s, 2 Pavehawk helicopters, multiple Humvees, 2 Predator drones, and an F-15. It just goes on and on. The complete and utter disaster in this
Mystery Babylon versus Babylon.
Yeah, Mr. Babylon versus Babylon. It's the same. This war has been Satan v. Satan. With Donald
Even
Trump
the Pope
against
weighed
Islam.
in.
Yeah, even the Pope. So we had Satan v. Satan v. Satan.
It's a full show. We got all the clowns in the car,
Oh, boy,
ladies
we
and
have-
gents.
And then Hexus, the unrecovered alcoholic, as a weekend host of Fox News, as Secretary of War. And he
see
said,
what-
"Oh yeah, those Iranians, they were begging for a ceasefire." No, they weren't.
Did
No.
you see the
But you
video?
were.
Did you see the video that they put out about Pete
No.
Hegseth?
No.
Oh wow!
Yeah, pizza.
Yeah,
Pizza.
Babylon
Pete is a-
showing her teeth.
Yeah, pizza, hot mess. The whole thing. Who would have? When we came to recognize this is the time, in the time of troubles, and that Trump is Rahab. He is the great betrayer. He is the incarnation of Satan. Can you imagine that it could have played out this vividly, this overwhelmingly? It's just amazing where we are.
Well, even early on, there were signals that he was going to give us lots of fodder.
Yes, he did.
So
He's
I
playing
said
the
a
role.
long time ago, strap in your seatbelts
Yeah.
and
I
put your
actually
tray
think-
tables. It's going to get bumpy.
I actually think Satan's response to Trump is the same response he had to Paul.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And Paul was just so full of himself and so egotistical and so inconsistent that Paul became an embarrassment to Satan, and so he had to rein him in. It's obvious.
He was a
So,
Stupid as Donald Trump.
so
Yeah,
Craig, are you saying that Satan is saying, hey, Don, you're making me look bad?
you are absolutely.
Yeah.
There's
saying that.
Only
Absolutely.
Donald Trump can make Satan.
yes.
Yeah, it's just like, listen, Satan has cultivated a slave army for genocide, and he has one country that is the best at that, at cultivating a slave army for genocide. And Donald Trump, as Satan, picks a fight with Satan's most effective tool, Iran. And Satan's got to say, "Hey, you dummy! I hate these people. There's the one. They're going to come in to destroy Israel in the end. And by the way, we're supposed to be there when it happens. We don't want Israel destroyed before we're there. Otherwise, we don't get credit for destroying it. You're just really screwing up. So
It's
we have a
great.
mess here. We got to get out of this mess. Let me help you with the surrender terms, and we'll just get out of this mess. We need to reboot, pal. You're really embarrassing me."
You mean Trump is confusing Satan?
No, Trump is not confusing Satan, but Trump is embarrassing Satan, just
Yeah.
like Paul did.
Yes. Frustrating him.
Yeah. Oh, I think that Muhammad was exactly the same thing. That Satan said, "Yeah, I know how this is going to play out, and we're going to make this happen. But good God, you're a pervert.
Yeah.
You are just such a whiner, such a worthless human being, so bloodthirsty. You God."
The people I have to work with.
Yeah, Satan's really had a tough time finding people to work with.
You
I mean,
good man.
going from Paul to Muhammad to Donald Trump. He had to stop with Hitler along the way. He has the type, but boy, it's pretty bad. All right, well, we are done for this evening. 8:43 Eastern time. We've had 2 hours and
35 minutes.
time. We got a
We
little
got a
late
music
start,
video.
audio issues, but I thought this was a really a wonderful way to spend this this evening. We're going to continue to talk all about these two Maor and their menorah and what they represent as we go through these things. I don't know if I'll ever get this thing done, because somewhere in the way we've got to go through the whole story of Ruth, because it's the heartwarming part of this whole thing. And ultimately, we have to go back into Zechariah and really identify who those two trees are and what's the relationship between those two trees and the menorah in the early chapters of Zechariah. So that's going to be another part of this. And you can't stop at Yoel 2, because this whole story of the sun and the moon and their relationship to these times goes all the way through Yoel 3. And then somewhere we've got to finish the story in Zechariah of going into 11, 12, and 13 and dealing with the fact that 2 out of every 3 Jews are going to die during the time of trouble, and coming to grips with that and what it means and why that turns out to be so. So we got a lot to do, and we're only going to do it as a team, and we're going to have fun at it. We're going to make the most of it. A lot of bad stuff's going to happen, but this story ends happily ever after. I'll tell you, the end of the story is a really, really good ending. It's just that we're going to go through some hell to get there. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
We had a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful celebration of Chag Matzah. And now we are plugging ahead, looking forward to the arrival of Shabuah in 7 sevens, and we'll celebrate that as well.
Okay.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
Good night, y'all.
Shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in. That was Fetch. Gotta run now. Catch y'all on our next podcast.